Okay, and am I still sharing my screen or did that go away?
You're not sharing your screen.
Look at me today, everybody.
She's doing wonderful. Usually I do this or Tony does this. And unfortunately, again, Tony's out of the country and I'm going to be in two places at the same time.
Okay, there we go. And now I don't know where this bar came from. Okay, we're working with it. Here we go.
You're sharing and it looks perfect.
Wonderful. Okay. I don't know why this bar keeps getting in my way of my notes, but I'll just keep shuffling it around. Thank you everyone for coming today. We've got some wonderful things planned for you. And let me drive this presentation if I can. A few housekeeping rules. Steve, are you sharing these for us today?
Sure. Let me minimize the window. Today's meeting is being recorded. Please ensure your microphone's on mute and questions can be submitted using the chat feature at any time. Thank you.
And our community agreements.
Our community agreements are: please stay engaged, speak your truth, no fixing, experience discomfort, take risks, listen for understanding, and expect and accept non-closure. Sorry, it's a tongue twister.
It's a fun one to warm up with. Thank you very much for sharing this, Steve. Okay, here's our agenda for today. This is a brief welcome because we want to be able to turn it over to Robin so that she can get started on the wonderful presentation she has for us today. So we're going to be talking about lean practices. She's got some wonderful tools and tips to share with us. And then we're going to do our committee reports and updates at the end. We usually do those in the beginning, but we wanted to be able to afford enough time for people to experience and work with lean. And then we have a few brief announcements about Hispanic Heritage Month coming up in September and October. So please be sure to stand by for that information as well. A few things about our LLN mission, vision, values. If you haven't been part of the LLN community before, and if this is your first time, welcome. We love having new people. We are a business resource group that is sponsored through OFM. And our vision is connecting and inspiring Washington State's Latino workforce and leaders of today and tomorrow. Our mission is through the power of connection to invest, inspire, and serve our members. And another note that we do use the term Latino in Latino Leadership Network. However, we use that word to be all-encompassing for anyone that identifies as Hispanic, Latino, Latina, Latinx, Latine, Chicano, Mexicana, Mexicano, the list goes on and on. All are welcome here. And we obviously welcome our allies in this space as well. Thank you everyone for attending. Today, we're going to hear from Robin Burkhart. She is a lean practitioner for Washington State. And I'm sorry, I don't have your exact title, Robin, but when I turn it over to you, please provide us with a brief introduction as you go into your PowerPoint slide. And with that, I'm going to hand control over to Robin.
Thank you, Monica. And so I did drop a Word document into the Zoom. I've never done that before, so hopefully it opens up and works well for you. And I will go ahead and start sharing my PowerPoint presentation. And if for some reason that document doesn't work well for you in chat, I'm sure you can reach out to Monica or myself and we can get that to you in another way, either by email or via Teams. So Monica, are you seeing my screen okay? My presentation?
Yep, looks great.
Great, okay. And please let me know if I start having any technical issues and need to turn off my camera to improve or anything like that. I am presenting and have my screen up. So if there are any questions in the chat or anything comes up, Steve will be letting me know that. So welcome. That worksheet that I threw in there is just something nice for you to take some reflective notes on as we go through the presentation today, and just a little way for you to take a look at what you're learning today and how you can learn more or use what you learn. My name is Robin Burkhart. I'm the Lean Data Manager for DOH. So it's kind of a weird term. So it's okay that you didn't know Monica. It's kind of a weird title. And so I work out of the Office of Innovation and Technology in DOH. And I'm really excited to be here today sharing information about Lean and Lean tools here at your community of practice. So today we will talk about what Lean is and highlight some common tools. And you can really think of this session like a box of chocolates. You're going to get a little bit of a lot of different flavors. There are tools in this session that I will cover that have entire books or multi-day trainings on them. So just know that you're not going to leave here being an expert in anything, but what you will leave with are some terms, tools, and understanding the general philosophy of Lean, and begin to understand how you might fit applying Lean in your daily life. And these tools can not only be helpful in your work world, but they can also be helpful in your personal life as well. So we will start with some Lean history, where Lean came from and how it arrived in Washington state government. So Lean actually started over 100 years ago at the Ford Motor Company. It's been in the mainstream for over 60 years now, most notably for the Toyota production system. And over the last 30 years, Lean has been adapted to the office environment, and it has proven successful in all sectors of business. Lean entered the Washington state government scene in 2011 when Governor Chris Gregoire issued an executive order for agencies to get started with Lean. It has since continued under Governor Jay Inslee with an executive order requiring executive cabinet agencies to implement Lean, and other elected officials, agencies, boards, and commissions, along with institutions of higher education, are encouraged to do the same. Many state agencies offer resources about Lean and how to apply it to your work. It has really evolved in state government over the years. It really, if you knew Lean back in the day when it first started, it was really like all about, 5-day value stream mapping events where, everyone would be secluded in a room with paper and lots of Post-its on the wall, for 5 days. And, nowadays it's really, it's really shifted from that. And we'll kind of talk about, more about why that shift happened. But now it's more of a daily standard now, just not, 1 week in a room together and just, doing a lot of mapping and really saying anything that anyone wants to hear to get out of that room and back to work. So yeah, we'll talk about that. So as it's evolved, basically Lean really aims to reduce as much waste as possible and really creating the most value for our end customers. And we do this by eliminating or reducing process steps that don't add value, eliminating other types of waste that can cause problems or block the flow of a process. And we'll go more about into what those wastes can look like. Going beyond single process improvement projects, a Lean culture of continuous improvement requires a shift in how leaders and everybody thinks. It's for everyone. At its core, it's about people knowing what our customers want. Over time, we've expanded our definition of Lean to ensure that we just don't focus on tools. Lean is a way of leading and working built on respect and humility that uses continuous improvement to produce great results for our customers. It's about everyone, every day, and it's really about a way that we work. You can use it on big, really complex multi-agency problems, and you can also use it, in small incremental improvements in your own daily work. And it's also the mindset of being able to want to improve and recognize improvement opportunities. So before we go forward anymore, is there any questions, Steve, or anything in the chat?
There are none so far. Thanks, Robin.
So like I said, we learned that we needed to go beyond just having events as our main method and our only lean strategy. So let's focus on some of the things that we learned over time to improve and grow. One of the biggest of those is culture. And a lean culture is one where the human experience matters. So I just said the human experience matters, and there's a big iceberg up on the screen. So let me explain. An iceberg is a really great analogy for culture. With icebergs, you can see the tip above the water, but the majority of the iceberg is underneath the surface. So much like an iceberg, a lean culture has aspects of things that you can see from the outside, like visual management, process maps. But what drives lean culture is underneath the surface. And those are things that tend to be values, beliefs, and mindsets. And in lean, those values, beliefs, and mindsets are really, really important. You have to have the mindsets and principles like these ones listed on the screen that partner with the tools. There needs to be the respect, the humility, the diversity, the mindset that problems are good and that it's okay to make mistakes. So there are a lot of tools out there, a lot. So these are just a few of the tools that we use at DOH on a pretty regular basis. And they are also some common tools used across state agencies. So we're going to be going through these one by one and touching on each of them. Let me say that you do not need to know all the lean terms to use lean. In fact, I try not to use them. There's nothing like, something having its own special language that kind of makes it, weary to use. So the lean universe is filled with expressions, acronyms, foreign words and concepts that don't seem to, be easy to understand at first sight. So any technical terms that do come up, as I do try to avoid them, I will explain as we go through today's presentation if they're just unavoidable. So before we get started on common tools, again, Steve, I'll check in with you. Any questions in the chat, or does anyone have any questions before we get started on the history and the mindsets I just mentioned?
There are no questions, Robin.
Okay, great. So the first thing we'll talk about is daily huddles. A lot of teams around our agency take part in daily huddles or stand-ups. Whatever you call it, just like it says on the slide right there, it can be a stand-up, a morning huddle, a roll call, a daily scrum, quick daily all staff meeting, whatever it is. It builds a sense of shared commitment to each other and to your big picture goals. During your short time together, acknowledge staff contributions and encourage communication among team members. The supervisor might inquire, for example, about any project challenges and encourage staff to contribute their resources. And there can also be an added bonus to possibly sharing a motivating thought for the day during a huddle. Huddles can also help teams promote agency culture elements like commitment to successful project implementation and completion. You can discuss issues that are not directly work related, but relate to your agency or organization's values and positively impact employee engagement and performance. And daily huddles also bring the day's agenda and priorities to the front of staff's minds. Teams can update each other on the status of projects since the last meeting, review important daily metrics if you have them, and team members can also quickly describe obstacles they face. All employees leave the huddle knowing how their daily task fits into their own co-workers' goals for the day. These meetings were generally, before COVID, done in person. and, or on the phone. They happen a lot nowadays, virtually on platforms like Teams or Zoom. And it's just a really nice way of quickly getting together with your team. Everyone, knows what each other's working on, any barriers or obstacles that you might have, and how your leader or your team can help you get through those barriers or obstacles. And I think that, I really got a lot out of my team's daily huddles before COVID when we were in person. And now virtually, they are just such a big help because, we all work on my team, we all work from home. So we're not in an office setting together. And so those quick huddles just really keep that connection and keep us accountable to our work and really help the work keep flowing by overcoming any barriers or obstacles while having those conversations and working together. Any questions about daily huddles? Again, all the tools that we're going through have like their own individual trainings with, even more deeper, dives, best practices, what to do, what not to do. So there's a lot more about each of these things, but we're just kind of covering the top.
Robin,
I
I
see
do have a quick question.
Okay.
Are there any tools or modifications that you've been utilizing since COVID, since it's changed the way that we're doing our huddles? Have you found any workarounds or helpful tricks, maybe even MS Teams, that help support the huddle?
Good question. So when it comes to our agency does use Teams as the standard. And so our huddles are in Teams. Some things that kind of more on the fun side that can be nice is like having a theme for the week where we like change our background photo, to our favorite, our favorite TV show, our favorite superhero character, or, our pets or whatever, there's kind of the fun stuff we're able to do in Teams like that. Because we're not able to, see each other's cubicles anymore, right? How we used to like decorate our cubicles and have our sports team in, stuff there, or things that we liked or were into, or, maybe we have a favorite school or something like that, or pictures of our families or pets. And we don't really have that anymore. So that's kind of like a fun way to display like personal things about our team members. So that's more of a fun thing, not a business thing. Some folks, my team does not at this point, but some folks include like a Teams channel in Teams to like keep certain documents in, or can also utilize that section for visual management of a work that they have going on, which we'll go on, talk about a little later, so they can keep track on who's working on what. I'm just trying to think of more things when it comes with using Teams. And the whiteboard function is nice as well. That was not something we had in the beginning with Teams. So sometimes using the whiteboard function in Teams, and that's also, if you use Zoom, that's also something that Zoom has as well, can also be a nice thing if you need to do some, brainstorming with your team. That's a nice aspect to have. And yeah, off the top of my head, Monica, those are like I'll probably think of more later, but those are the things that come to mind at the moment.
Wonderful, thank you. And yes, we still need fun in the business aspect too. So thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions or thoughts about huddles before I move on?
I have a question, Robin. This is Davey from OSPI. Just wondering on the daily huddles, some of them, we've done that a little bit here, and depending on, which department or team you're with. And so what do you recommend for timing of these as far as length of time? And does it vary?
So recommend 15-minute huddles. And, basically what a lot of teams do and what my team does is we have like a morning huddle for 15 minutes, 3 mornings of the week, because most folks don't work Friday or work every other Friday. So usually no huddle on Friday, but usually Monday is more of an hour-long what we call a tactical meeting. So not really a huddle, but that's kind of our like hour-long meeting to kick off the week and talk about what everyone will be working on and what that looks like. And then the other 3 days are 15-minute check-ins. And 15 minutes, right? And we all like get into meetings or huddles that run long. So it's all about having like team agreements to keep that timing in place. Like we mean 15 minutes, we don't mean 30 minutes. And so sometimes if things get a little lengthy or someone needs more time, has a bigger issue, then they might just need to connect with one of their teammates offline instead of, like if there's 5 of you on a team and 2 of you like get to going back and forth on one thing, the other 3 are going like, I have things to do, it's just like making team agreements that if something's going to run long or someone needs more time that they can meet offline. So yeah, because there are like certain guidelines and rules you want to keep around huddles because you don't want your 15-minute huddles turning into another hour meeting on your calendar, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
And it all depends on what works for your groups too. Some people huddle in the afternoons and kind of talk about, what's happening the next day, because that just works for the group schedule. So it's not that it absolutely always has to be in the morning. It's really about whatever works for your group.
Appreciate your sharing the dynamic and the flow of the week.
You bet. Any other questions?
Yes, there is one question in the chat. During huddles, do you require team members to be on camera?
We do not make it a requirement in my group. We usually do, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes due to technical difficulties. I've been known to have to, they kind of like politely ask me to turn off my camera because my voice isn't keeping up with my picture or I'm frozen or whatever. So sometimes during, because of technical difficulties, we don't have, might have the camera turned off, or sometimes maybe we're just like eating our yogurt or something like that, right? You're like, I'd have my camera on, but I'm eating and you don't want to watch that. So there's no requirement. People usually do in a huddle. I mean, not, and even in the like hour-long team meetings, unless there's some reason they can't have it on, and they usually mention why. So it's not a requirement, but they usually do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So time to move on to the next tool, Monica?
Yep, that sounds good. I was giving you the thumbs up. I forgot you can't see me when you're presenting.
Yeah, just me sitting alone in a room with my screen. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the 5S methodology. So its purpose is really to assist you in establishing an orderly workflow. And this is done by removing what's no longer needed and really creating and sustaining a system for those items that are needed. It's used for improving organization of the workplace. The name comes from the 5 steps required to implement, and the words, each starting with 5, used to describe, or I'm sorry, S, 5S, each starting with S, used to describe each step. So 5 steps, each one starting with S, 5S. So I have found this tool to be helpful in many aspects, not just work stuff. I mean, I find this helpful at home and, organizing areas in the home, the garage. It works, at the office, supply areas, etc. This is just a really nice tool. And we'll go through quickly each step of the 5S methodology. So the first step is to sort. And this is really eliminating the unnecessary items or records from your desk or shared filing space. And when I say shared filing space, that doesn't need to be a paper filing space. I mean, this can be helpful shared drives, SharePoint sites, even MS, team pages, even cleaning up the electronicals, the electronic stuff. And so when it's physical, it's real easy to put everything into 3 piles. The things you're going to retain, keep. Rid. You don't even use, this really means, for records, destroying or archiving them or return them. It doesn't belong on your desk. It can go back to a storage room or a high density area. So in a way, you can mentally kind of do this with the electronic stuff or even make folders to do this, but it can help with that aspect too, not just, paper physical things. So, retain it, keep it because you need it, get rid of it because you don't even use it, return it because it doesn't even belong where it is and you don't need it, but maybe somebody else does. So when in doubt, move it out is a way for you to remember that first S. Some examples are documentation of maybe significant career work and accomplishments. That might be something you want to retain and keep. Multiple copies of the same report, especially those that have been superseded, something you may want to get rid of. And of course, always if it's, in accordance with your agency's retention schedule. And like I said before, this can also be applied to electronic records as well as paper records. And after you sort, the things that you're keeping need to be set in order. So after having everything sorted, all the items need a specific strategic place to be put. The retain items should be placed nearby because those are the things that you use the most. And the return and rid items should be moved appropriately away as you don't use them. So the key is to separate necessary items, everything tangible, from any and all unnecessary items, and remove what is not necessary. And arrange everything that you kept so that it's easy to find and missing items are easily noticed. Like, labels can really help with something like that. Or, like I have this, this is my office / craft room, this amazing, pegboard situation from IKEA. If the scissors aren't in their place, I know this, the scissors are lost because they have their own home on the board. So really, just key points for arranging a workspace is to identify key equipment and supplies, determine a location for each item, and utilize visual management if that helps, like labels or folders, or labeling folders. And sometimes with paper documents, I've even seen people put the retention date and schedule on paper documents as well as like electronic files as folder names too, just so they know when they can get rid of them. So shine, everything's in its place. So now it's time to clean, also known as sweep. Clean your desk by, it used to be a thing when we had cubes in the office, and you still might, depending on where you work, to sanitize at the end of the day, especially if you were working in drop-in spaces, because, clean your desk when you leave it so the next person that comes in has a clean desk. Feel free to clean up any loose items that are not in their proper place, and possibly even have a moment to get items for the next day. So it's just, keeping up with all of it. And standardize. Now that your workspace is organized and clean, wouldn't you like to keep it that way? So to do this, it's really creating a standardized process for yourself of sorting, setting in order, and shining every time something new is given to you and could potentially end up at your desk. Basically the right things the right way every time. It just becomes a regular habit. And sustaining. So the final S represents the maintenance and review of the standards you've set. Are you preserving the procedures you established? and how well are these practices working for you? So checking in, is this working for you? If not, what can be improved about it? So I really encourage you to be open about making positive adjustments, especially in your own workspace, and find what works for you. And, you're also welcome to apply the 5S principles to other areas of your job. If you start applying these principles, it will sustain the culture of organization, throughout your area. It used to be throughout your office, but many of us work from home. And so our offices are kind of small. And it really, it's just all about keeping your workspace organized and being able to find what you need when you've done it. So really, when you go through this, maintain what you've done and don't let all that hard work go to waste. And this is just a nice before and after kind of situation of a supply room, right? On the left, very unable to easily locate supplies, unsafe, not functional. On the right side, very organized, labeled, and systematic. And all the DOH supply rooms kind of went through this process, back in the day, and were standardized across the agency. And I tell you, when I probably go into the office once every 3 months to print some handbooks and mail them out. And while I'm, spending time in the copy room, I'm still like picking up and cleaning things and organizing it. So yeah, it's really nice. And like I said, it's great to use at home, in many different aspects of the home area too. So any questions about 5S'ing before we move on to the next tool? Questions, thoughts?
There are currently no questions in the chat.
Robin, I do have a question for you.
Mhm.
How does the 5S work? Might it work in conjunction with I'm gonna mess it up, but GPDCA?
You did just fine. GPDCA. And we're actually going to be talking about that 9-step problem solving process as well. And so basically, I feel like 5S could be a product that comes out of going through a 9-step problem solving process. Like in the picture before you, like if the problem you were trying to solve is the supply room is a mess and what are we going to do? That could be part of that 9-step problem solving process. That could be actually, just one of the tools that you would use to help, fix that problem. Does that make sense, Steve?
I think it does. Yeah, I'll have to think about it, but yeah, intuitively, yes, it does make sense. And there is a question here in the chat. What do you recommend, Huddles, and work the 5S's for field offices that help our Washingtonians?
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Daniel, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes. Hi, how are you?
Good, good. So are you talking about when customers are coming into offices, field offices?
Well, we have a set time where we open for the public. So, and I'm looking for the time that, okay, how are we going to be continuing every day to have these hurdles? We open at, like, say, for example, at 8:15, customers start coming in at 8:30. And to have everybody ready together, it can be an issue. At the same time, at the end of the day, when you close at 5 o'clock, then you have another 15 minutes to finish up and close and all that, but everybody's not ready at the same time. So sometimes when you're trying to get these hurdles, it's kind of really difficult to set them up in that time.
Right. No, that makes sense. If you have employees that are working customer service and, that I've done that before back in the day, call center, and it starts at a certain time, it ends at a certain time, and there's not a lot of meeting time in between. So huddles can be hard for employees that are working direct customer service. So unless it was something that was, just worked into a part of the day that kind of worked for everybody, and maybe it would have to be possibly staggered, you know, when I'm thinking of my customer service experience, like not all of us could just be gone all at once, right? But even when we had to go to certain meetings or trainings, like half went at one time of the day, half went at the other. So maybe even trying to, especially if you're a supervisor of that group, like breaking up some huddle time during the day instead of doing it all together, you know, and maybe, you know, rotate through those groups too, so everybody has a kind of a chance to hear from everyone. Or, you know, maybe you could even like build in some sort of communication out of those huddles too. You know, if you had a huddle with a group and just say there were 10 employees and you had a huddle with 5, there was a barrier, a challenge that came up and no one could really like help that person in those 5, could an email go out to like the other half? Or, you know, I'm just kind of like problem solving or just thinking out loud and brainstorming right now, you know, about how that might work. But, you know, there could be a way to make it work, but it is going to be a little bit more of a challenge because folks that work directly with the customers, you know, they're mainly working with their customers, and when they're not, it's their break times, right, that they get to have. So you don't want to be taking away their break times, but trying to work it in there somewhere if that would be a benefit to the team. And 5S can maybe, you know, be something that they can work on their own in their own areas, you know, when they have time during the day, when maybe there's a break from the customers. But, you know, definitely having that 15 minutes at the end of the day after, you know, shutting off to kind of get everything straightened up and getting ready for the next day. Was that helpful?
Yes, the one thing I mentioned too is sometimes you get into the office, you have everybody sign in, and then the last 5 or the 10 minutes have the huddle. And right now, like we're using Teams, and Teams is a very good tool. So we create a group, and in that group, everybody kind of talks and says things when they need any questions or things like that.
Yes.
So I think that's the way it's going to be going for us, as in creating teams. And so hopefully all these offices will have the opportunity to do it that way. And having the opportunity to talk to you guys here, I think it will be a good thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, no, and I like that. And I like that Teams idea. And that reminds me also when I was working contact tracing in 2020, and, you know, of course, you're pulled away from your regular team, you know, to work with a different team and do that, you know, customer service work. And we would have a huddle in the morning before we started making our phone calls. But we kept that Teams chat open all day long, so that if any issues came up or anyone had any questions, you know, while doing contact tracing, and the lead was on that as well, then we could help each other out during the day, you know. So while we were, I mean, it was like just an extended, like all day huddle kind of situation, having that Teams chat open, and anyone that had issues could put them in there and we could help each other. So I like that idea too. Anything else before we move on?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking. Okay, so now we'll talk about waste and the main 8 wastes that we look at when it comes to lean. And so you're seeing on the screen, Lean Six Sigma, 8 waste. What is Six Sigma? So don't let that throw you. So Six Sigma is just like a philosophy. It's like a perspective of lean. And it really just views work processes that can be defined, measured, analyzed, improved, and controlled. It's called the DMAIC model. And we'll talk about 9-step problem solving, which is what we use more at the state. But I don't have it in front of me, but there's a lovely crosswalk that shows how the DMAIC and, you know, the 9-step problem solving process is really just, you know, they're kind of like the same thing. They just use different tools to get to the same thing. So Six Sigma is just basically just a model that's used with lean. And if you do like lean training up at UW, they do Six Sigma training. And if you do lean training like within a state agency, it's usually 9-step problem solving method. So that's what the Six Sigma means there, if that's helpful at all. And so there are 8 main wastes that we look at in lean, and a lot of things that we look at when we're visually mapping a process or gathering current state information and looking at a process. And so we'll go through each of these as well. So the first one is defects. So work that did not accomplish its purpose or was not correct the first time. You'll see some, examples up there on the screen: lost records, mistakes, unclear or inconsistent instructions. Defects, also known as rework, is really rework is something that you hear more of when you're going through a lean process than defects. But yeah, so defects, also known as rework. So overproduction. So this is, really just more information or product than what is needed. Creating and saving multiple copies of the same document, creating things that no one reads, or collecting data no one uses, or having unnecessary meetings. So really just overproduction. Waiting. So delays, created when material, information, or equipment or people are not ready to perform the required task. Piles of files sitting on your desk waiting to be addressed rather than organized neatly in a filing cabinet or in a high density area, waiting for signatures or approvals, or handed off work to return. So just waiting. I'm sure that we've all experienced waiting. And non-utilized talent, missed opportunities, unbalanced workloads, either not enough work or too much. And, and it's critical to remember that organizations fail to achieve their full potential because they fail to use the full potential of their people towards the single purpose of providing customer value. So, just really lost time or lost ideas or skills or learning opportunities by not engaging or listening to our employees. Insufficient training, unbalanced workloads, or not delegating tasks to the most capable person. So non-utilized talent is a waste. So transportation, and this is not the movement of people, but it's more of the movement of products, work, or information that does not add value. Handoffs where work's transferred from one person to another, storing or retrieving paper files. So really it's just more about the movement of the products or the thing, but not the people. We'll get to people. Inventory. So having extra files at your desk that are not frequently referenced, more information and or material on hand that's needed, files waiting to be worked on, excessive supplies that are purchased, unused records in the database, right? So this isn't just about, paper records, but electronic records as well. And the motion. So this is the movement of people, not the things. So movement that doesn't add any value. So looking for supplies, unnecessary trips to the copier printer, or making, phone calls to track down information. So, and I know that some people, when they were in the office were like, but I like my walking all the way to the copy machine, right? Because I'm getting my steps in. So, if you want to get those steps in, that's fine. But if you don't want to, yeah, that could be a waste. And extra processing. So really doing more than what the customer requires. So yeah, examples like multiple reviews on a report, I think that's one that we commonly run into too, is many people having to review something before we can move forward or get that task done. So those are the 8 wastes. So any questions or thoughts about the 8 wastes? As you can see, some of those wastes that you'll even notice if you're going through 5S too.
Robin, I have a question here. I know the sensitive nature of PowerPoints, but will this PowerPoint be shared out with the people in attendance today?
Oh, I can share this PowerPoint, you bet.
Great. I think I'm loving it, and I know everybody else is too. That it's just thinking about our work areas and thinking about this, that.
Yeah, no, I can definitely share it.
Awesome. Thank you, Robin. I do have a quick question, and there aren't any in the chat currently. But my question is, and no pressure, but do you have an example of maybe a solution for one of these 8 wastes? Just a tangible response, because people are having these waste issues because they believe they need them. Do you have an example of a solution where people were able to successfully remove that waste with the fix?
You know, one thing we did some time ago before COVID, I don't know how many times we say before COVID nowadays, but before COVID, over in our environmental public health side of DOH, I worked over there and we worked on a project on getting rid of paper. It was a focus on paper records, and we went around the entire division, even to satellite offices across the state. And we did training on 5S and 8 wastes and records training, and how to read your record retention schedule, and what you you know, what you need to keep and what you don't keep. And groups went through after taking the training and went through paper records, and we supplied like extra recycling bins in their areas, like whatever they needed to be successful, to go through things at their desk, to go through things in the high density and really clean out, recycle what could be recycled, send to the record center or the archives what needed to go there, and to really take a look at the records that they had and make a more sustainable process, so they didn't have to go through this kind of situation like every few years, you know, where, oh, now we have a lot of papers, now we have to clean it up again. And you probably heard me mentioning, like, you know, taking the information, the retention schedule, and putting it on file folders, you know, this, you know, retention says, you know, keep in the office for 6 years, then destroy, you know, and you know, it can be destroyed on this date. So you could just look at a file folder and know, oh, okay, so we're done with this. This can be recycled, or this has to go to the record center. And so that ended up being a really great, like, waste project that sticks out in my mind, where people, you know, really for the most part dug in. I don't even remember, there was like like hundreds of boxes that went to the record center. I'm sure they were real happy with us, right? Like, here's all these boxes all at once. Like, I'm sure there was you know, hundreds of records that went out to the record center or archives. I don't even remember how many recycle bins were filled up, but that was just a really great project. But it was just about, you know, training too, you know, training folks not only on the lean tools, but training them on records and retention schedules, you know, what goes to the record center, what goes to archives. And that was, you know, a really great tangible project that happened. And that's kind of the first thing that came to my mind. Is that helpful, Monica?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably some of the questions sitting on the top for some of us is, we believe that we need multiple people to review a single report, but how do we get away from that habit?
Right? Yeah. And that's just about getting curious and asking why, right? And not getting the, you know, not taking, we've always done it this way for an answer, but does it really need to, you know, does the process really need to be done like this? You know, does it really need to go through 3 people? Or can we improve this process? You know, does it just really need to, you know, this one person really needs to see it. Maybe you just need to be CC'd. There's lots of different ways to look at that. But yeah, it's all about really putting the process under a microscope and questioning it. And when I work with folks and, we hear, well, it's in an RCW or it's in a WAC. Well, it's like, great, show me that. Show me that language that says that, or it's in a policy somewhere. And sometimes they can't because, maybe it was back in the day or someone thought it was, and that's just the story that's came along with the process, and I've had people where I've questioned, something on a map saying, well, why do you do this right here? And their answer is like, because they say that we need to do it that way. And then I ask nicely, who's they? And there's, it's like, basically it's always been done this way, so it's really great to really take a look at a process and, question, does, how can we improve this? Does it really need to be done this way? Or can we try something different? We can try it, right? We're just trying it on. We'll see how it goes. We'll check in about it. It doesn't have to be set in stone, but maybe we can try it differently.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we do have someone with their hand up. Daniel, please feel free to share your question.
Yes, when ask about the paperwork and the desk and all that, like for me, working at a counter with customers, I cannot maintain the papers and on the desk. So what I've been doing, and I know we are very new with this new technology, but teams in our team, there's places where you can put the documents for your team. That's something that, I hope there was some type of classes or some that you can take and trying to figure it out how someone who managed that team to be able to show how to file these papers instead of having them in that desk. So that way you don't feel like you're gonna throw it away or make a copy. You don't have to make any copy, just keep it in there. It's just the main with time becomes probably an issue with the memory and having so many documents there, but just an idea.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea, but you're right too. It's like even putting them electronically, that can really build up too. I mean, we haven't even had like Teams files very long, right? And I already find myself going into things that have been there for a year and cleaning them up going, I can see where this can get just as crazy as a shared drive, right? Just with all the documents. So sometimes, just maybe looking at it, are you able to like keep things in a folder with a destroy date labeled on it or something like that? Just, so you can like not end up with thousands and thousands of electronic documents too. So really like looking at ways to visually manage those things as well. So, when they can be removed. Yeah. Okay. Are we ready to talk Kanban? All right. So this is one of my favorite things. So love Kanban. Have a signed book by Jim Benson. I love it so much. And basically it's a Japanese word for a like visual signal or card. And it's just a really nice way to like get what's happening in your brain out and somewhere visual. And people, can use these as individuals having like their Kanbans up on the wall, or some folks like this lower, I guess this is a left-hand corner on the screen, that's kind of one that's done in mural electronically. People use these as individuals, they use them as teams, they use them for projects. It really just depends on what you want visual management of. So this is just visual management. It's a visual tool that helps you organize your work, basically visual management, like I said, which is the presentation of a wide variety of information in the workplace. Such information may pertain to, jobs themselves, to the business as a whole, how teams are progressing on a project, your individual work, maybe even projects you have at home that you're working on, or maybe just what you want to get done in your home life. Kanban boards are examples of visual management, just like storage bins with sample parts displayed, tool shadow boards, storyboards, etc. Really just something so you can see what's going on at a glance. And I do have Jim Benson's book listed on the last slide of this PowerPoint presentation. It's a really nice book about Kanban. He has YouTube videos out there so you can learn even more about Kanban. And there's only really two rules of it that he will tell you about, is to visualize your work and to limit your work in progress, that doing column that you make. It's really, you don't want to be throwing 10 things in your doing column for the day. Really no more than 4. So really just focusing on your work in progress and what you can really accomplish. And you can really make Kanban boards to tailor, what works for you. I mean, to do, doing, done is very common. Some folks like have a pending, that will like go into the to do, doing, done. Some people have columns where they're like, waiting for that approval or someone else to review something. So there might be, waiting for a review column or something like that. It just depends on your type of work. And, like I said, individual Kanbans are useful. Team Kanban boards can be helpful as well, where kind of it would look like this, but everyone, on the team would have a row. And in this virtual work world, some teams are using programs like Miro or Mural, SharePoint sites, or Trello to create collaborative as well as individual Kanban boards. And so it's just really about taking your work and making it visual. I used to love it, back in the day when, you'd have your performance and development, and basically for the year, that done column, I would keep all the stickies of like really big things that I worked on that I accomplished, to go over at an annual review. If you have your board somewhere virtually where your team can see it, or in person, up on a wall, folks can, a leader can walk by or a supervisor and quickly see what you're working on and what you're doing. Or as like if your team's working on a project, then you can see where that's at, or where you need to maybe pick up something for someone. Back in the day before COVID, when we used to huddle, we actually huddled around our team's Kanban board and would move things along and talk about what was happening. And so it was actually part of our huddle discussion. We haven't done that virtually yet. That's a good idea. We have started using Mural a lot more and have paid licenses at DOH. So that might be a cool thing for me to bring up with my team, but needless, it's really nice. It's just like one of my favorite tools, and I can talk about it all day long. So with that, any questions or thoughts about visual management in Kanban?
Not a question, but a cheer for a need for virtual Kanban boards.
Yes. Yeah. As I'm talking, like and thinking out loud, I was like, oh yeah, like a lot of us have Mural now at the agency. My team should start doing that again, since we huddle, and having a virtual Kanban, that would be lovely. I'll bring it up at our next huddle. It's really nice. I've used it for home projects, especially when there's a lot going on. And, every time you're having a conversation with your partner, it seems like, oh, we just need to get these 3 things done, and then we'll be good. And then the next time you talk a few days later, there's 3 other things. And then there's 3 other things. And it's like, well, I thought there was just these 3 things, but there seems to be 23 things to do. And just really, putting that up with the Post-its, and and I remember doing that with a project we had, and it wasn't really a ready, doing, done, basically we could get these things done on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. So it kind of like got to, okay, so what we're going to work on Friday and what we're going to work on Saturday, right? So, I mean, you could really just utilize this kind of, virtual Post-it tool and make it, whatever works for you and your project or your daily work or your home life. It's really nice. It's really great to just to get the stuff out of the brain onto paper.
We do have
Any
a
other
question.
Oh, go ahead, Monica.
Yes, great information. Any tips on how to keep your Kanban system current and fresh?
You have to work it daily. Yeah. And, if you just let it go, it just kind of, it gets stagnant. And, I actually have little reminders, on my Outlook calendar for my work Kanban, to have some Kanban time every morning, or maybe it's every afternoon, like whatever, like to get ready for the next day, whatever works for you. But it's all about really having some dedicated, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, to really take a look at your Kanban. Okay, this is what I want to accomplish today. This is what I have coming up, and during your day, don't wait till the end of the day. Like as you get something done, move that Post-it to done, right? All right, that's done. And if you finish your 3 things you plan to do for the day and you have capacity to do more in the to-do column, move one more over and see if you can get something else done. But yeah, it's you can't just let it sit and forget about it, or it's just not useful at all. It just has to be part of a daily routine.
And we also have a question. How would you suggest using Kanban board between an EA and her boss, executive assistant, executive admin and their boss?
If you're in, are you in the, well, I'll do it both ways. If you're in the workspace together, I think it's really helpful to maybe have it in the executive assistant's space, and whether it can even be like on the outside of a cubicle or an office, so other folks, including the boss, can see. And again, including like a daily huddle around the Kanban is really nice to get clear on what's going on. And if you're in a virtual world and you want to be Kanbaning together, using a collaborative tool with whatever your agency's, comfortable with. I know they don't like a lot of free versions of things, but if there is like a version of Miro or Mural or Trello, or maybe even using SharePoint that you could use, so you could both have access to it. If you can't have access, maybe it's something you can keep electronically in some sort of other software, or I think you can even put Post-its even up on your desktop nowadays. But if it has to be like something that maybe just the executive assistant has, and you're working virtually, you could possibly, again, tying it in with some sort of like daily huddle and bringing it up on your screen and going through it together. Is that helpful?
It is. I currently do like a tracking sheet, and there's just so many things that I work for the chief operations officer. So there's 1,000,001 things that I'm helping her track and keep on board. What is she doing? What am I doing? What's been accomplished? And then we're about to hire a project manager. So it's going to be like a tripod effect. It's the EA and the project manager with the COO, and just all of us making sure we're, aligned. So for sure. And we only work in the office Mondays and Wednesdays. So it would have to be an electronic format. It's nice to have a board, but we're only in the office Mondays and Wednesdays, if that. Right. So thank you. This is amazing.
Yeah, and you can, and if it's for certain projects, you could have like, it can be more than just doing done if you wanted some more across that way, but maybe down the side, you have chunks of this project, that project, the next project, and what needs to be done, what's being done today and what is done. Sometimes, you can do it that way to add some some rows in with those columns and kind of, chunk it out that way. Because when we do team Kanbans, we've done that with like our names, like we'll have rows like Robin's row, Judy's row, Jessica Ray's row, and the things that we're doing. So you can also, I don't have an example of that kind of Kanban up there, but that can be done too.
Thank you.
I've seen like offices use it for like their, PDP, their evaluation process tracking too. So, sometimes they're just like using something for like a short-term 2-month project as well, just to keep it visual. Anything else, Monica?
Nothing else in the chat. And we're doing pretty okay on time. I think you have some other tools that you wanted to review as well.
Yep. Okay. All right. So process mapping. So process mapping is a tool used to make business processes visual. The process map documents an entire process step by step, which allows us to see relationships between inputs and outputs of a process, along with clear identification of decision points and any other steps in a process series. The process map is generally used towards the beginning of initiatives in order to understand the flow of a process, to capture current state, but it can also be used in support of almost every phase of improvement projects. So why map our processes? Mapping really helps show the flow, see what the work actually looks like, and it's a great tool when capturing the current state of work. And it's one of the tools that we talk about when we get to 9-step problem solving, using mapping to gather current state. Create common understanding with staff that actually do the work, and seeing the work visually can really help teams and leadership see the process and any challenges or barriers within the process. It can identify waste. Mapping helps show waste, like we just discussed, movement, rework, multiple approvals happening. Doing a visual map can really make that waste pop out. Roles and responsibilities. Mapping can be one way to help make team roles and responsibilities visually clear. And you can also use, a mapping process to map a improved future state that you want to try. If you map a process and you're identifying waste and improvement ideas along the way, and you have that information, you can use that to design a future state map that eliminates that waste and tries some of those improvement ideas as well. So sometimes you'll hear current state map, future state map, and that's what that means. Current state is what's actually happening, and future state is what you want to try. And for training too, maps can be a helpful training tool for new employees or staff that need to fill in for someone else. It's visual, it's right there, step, boom, boom, boom. Here's what everyone does in this process. So instead of stopping and pausing for questions right now, I'm going to go through these last few tools and then ask for questions, since Monica did mention time and I could see that we're getting short on it. Always happy to talk afterwards, though. Feel free to contact me. So 9-step problem solving, like Steve mentioned earlier. So this method is, really based on the GPDCA cycle. You probably have heard of plan, do, check, act, plan, do, check, adjust. That's nothing new, but what's really different about this method is that you were emphasizing the grasp the situation portion of the planning step. We're doing this because it's the most important part, and if done well, it makes the rest of the cycle easier and more effective. When we're solving problems, we sometimes get tripped up on common assumptions. We often assume we know what the problem is without actually going and seeing what's happening. We can often assume we know how to fix a problem without finding out what's causing the problem. And this problem solving method really points us to identifying the root cause. The 9-step problem solving method helps us avoid the assumptions. This is actually a 4-hour training that is currently available at the Department of Enterprise Services, DES. They do have a 4-hour training on this that's virtual if you're interested in learning more. If you work at DOH, we've had it available for free at the agency before, and we're now having talks about what we can do to bring it back virtually for free at the agency. And some things that we're going to be talking on next is finding root cause and the 5 whys, and that's actually used in step 5 here. So we will go into that next. But that observe and measure current state, that's step 2. That's really where it's really nice to use mapping. And it's not always mapping. Sometimes it's collecting data, but mapping can be a common tool that we use in step 2. And, basically identifying the problem, gathering current state, and getting facts about the problem, setting a clear target about where you want to be and when, and really describing that gap in step 4 of where you are and where you want to be, and then really getting down to root cause and choosing a countermeasure to address it, and then do that plan, do, check, act. Because we're saying countermeasure, we're not saying solution. We're going to try it, right? Like, we think this might address it, so we're going to try it. And we're going to go through the PDCA method to adjust if needed, or keep it and add something else. And that 5 why piece is just really channeling your inner toddler and asking, why? Why is this happening? Okay, so that's happening. Why is this happening? 5 whys. It may need more or less than 5 whys, but really it's an average of 5 to get to root cause. And just a quick example. So this actually happened. There was a group that was working on an issue with the Washington Monument in DC deteriorating. And it was because they were using these strong chemicals to clean it. And then why were they using the strong chemicals to clean it? There was a lot of pigeons pooping on the monument. And instead of stopping there, right, they dug deeper. So because we don't want to go poisoning and killing a lot of pigeons, and that wouldn't have done the trick anyways, because it was really about spiders were there. That's why the birds were there. So more birds would just come back because they like to eat the spiders. And the spiders were there because there was lots of flies and moths at the monument. And come to find out, it was because the lights were turned off at dusk. So if you turn the lights on later, that stopped the chain of all those causes. Like, who would have thought that your main problem was, for this issue was just about when the lights were turned on. And then they even looked at, this wasn't always an issue. Like, why did this become an issue? And basically at one point, they turned the lights on earlier for some postcard photography that was being done, and they never changed it. So the lights came on earlier and all these things happened. Now this picture makes it look really easy peasy, right? Why? Because. It's not easy, right? I'm sure this was lots of people in a room, getting the people doing the work in the room, a lot of data collection. Like, this is a lot of work that you're looking at, even though it looks really nice and simple. And again, just a whole nother training on its own, using the 5 whys to get root cause, but it really is a nice and effective tool. So just about finishing up, Monica. So really,
You're doing great. Thank you.
It's all about continuous learning, right? I mean, even myself, I've done this for years. I'm always learning new things. Remember to always look for ways to improve a process. If you don't, you might work where you feel like there's not an improvement culture and you don't want to really talk about it. Well, just do what you can in the areas you have control over, and don't wait till something can be done to 100% perfection or all over improvement. Incremental improvements that you can try sooner can have a big impact. And, it's okay to fail. And we learn from our failures and use that experience as a lesson learned as we move forward. I mean, it can not only be a lesson learned about, what we learned, but we share those lessons with one another, right? And it's like, oh yeah, you can try that, but this is what we learned, and maybe that, might not work. The goal is to always be curious and learning about how to improve systems for our end customer. Connect with others. Those of us that do this work love to chat about it, obviously, because I'm probably going over time. And we love to share our lessons learned and our materials and tools. Yeah, we just love it. And hopefully you have some folks in your agency that you can connect with about improvement work as well. And with that, just my last slide here, how can you learn more? Do you have an agency lien advisor? Great, reach out to them, learn more. There's an annual lien conference coming up that's virtual, and I put the website up there. Their past conference materials are on that website as well. You can just Google Results Washington and get there too, but they have videos from previous conferences that you can watch. Problem Solving the Washington Way daily lien classes are available at Department of Enterprise Services, DES. And I put some recommended books there as well. And probably you can do lots of Googling and YouTubing on certain things too. But anyways, I know I'm over time. I don't know if Monica has any more time for questions or not.
You know what? We absolutely do. Thank you so much for trying to keep us there, keep us on schedule. But also I think that this is giving great value add for the members. So please, if you have any questions for any of the sections that Robin was able to cover, feel free to ask them. I am a huge fan of the 5 whys. I think that has actually been really helpful terminology and tool to use. So if you have questions, now's a great opportunity to go for it.
Hi, I raised my hand. Should I just jump in?
Yep, that's absolutely fine. Thank you.
Great. Hi, Robin. My name is Myra. Thank you. Robin, this is the first time I'm at the Latino Leadership Network meeting. And while I've heard of lean before, it's the first time I've really heard it explained. I've never been trained in it or anything. I'm charged to stand up a task force, a BIPOC business task force, to I'm in Thurston County, by the way, to get down to the what kind of things we could do to help minority businesses move forward in general. And I'd love to maybe use some of these practices. Can you maybe share some ways to start with my group, or is that like too big of a question?
No, I don't think that's too big of a question. And so, when I think of, just off the top of my head, what you're saying right there, just makes me think of the problem solving method, and just, really looking at that problem and going through the 9 steps could possibly be beneficial. I mean, I just have a snippet of information, right? But that's like the first thing that popped into my mind. But maybe some other tools, would be helpful too in that scenario. And if you want, you can always, reach out to me and pick my brain. I'm going to put my email in the chat, because if we talk offline, then maybe I can, oh, I'm sorry, I sent that just to Julie. I don't know why that happened. I will retype it. So then if we talk online, then I can just pick your brain a little bit more too, and get some more information about what you're looking at, and maybe could be a little bit more helpful.
Okay, great. Thank you, Robin. I appreciate it. I will reach out.
Great. And I will make sure I don't have everyone's contact information. So Monica, I think I will just send you the updated presentation and the worksheet in case folks weren't able to open it, and maybe you could send it out to the group.
That would be wonderful. And everyone, you can keep an eye out for an LLN newsletter, hopefully with that content. And thank you, Myra, for the question, and welcome to the LLN meeting. We're happy to have you.
Thank you, Monica.
We do have time for other questions if anybody has anything else they'd like to ask. And while you might be thinking of some questions, I will share that we do use Mural in the department that I'm at within DOH. Our Office of Innovation and Technology has found it a really useful whiteboard collaboration tool for gathering information. If you're if you're curious about Mural, feel free to use a web search to find it. They have many, many templates built in that actually do house some of like these elements that you're seeing today. So they have a template for the 5 whys. They have a template for Kanban. So if you're interested in something virtual to share with your team, I recommend that as a useful tool that worth looking into. And it's wonderful when you don't have to invent this from scratch yourself, to have some foundation to build off of. And then you can modify it to your needs. So if you have questions about that, I think Robin is probably a mural expert at this point. I'm still intermediate novice level, but feel free to let us know if you have questions about that.
I typed the 3 platforms in the chat too, just because, Mural, Miro, like they sound so similar, right? Just so you have the spelling as well. Yeah, but they're all good platforms for that. It's just whatever your agency likes.
Yes, and that's probably a caveat too for some of our teams coming from different agencies. You might have different purchasing parameters or contracting processes, but that's a nice place to start your web search for tools like that. And I'm not seeing more questions, and I don't see any hands raised. So everyone, please join me in giving, Robin a virtual round of applause. Thank you so much for coming to our group and sharing this wonderful intro and tools that I'm sure some of us are really excited to use and bring into our workspaces. So thank you so much for your time today, Robin. You are welcome to stay for the remainder of our gathering because next we are going to do committee reports and updates. And we're also going to be highlighting some things to expect for Hispanic Heritage Month coming up. So I will go ahead and turn it over to our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team for their report and update. Steve, Jovita?
I am Steve and Jovita today. Jovita is out. So we are having our meeting in a couple days. It will be on this Thursday at 3 p.m. We'd love to see you there if you've never been before. And if you've been there before, we better see you this Thursday. We are getting together to get resources together to plan for next year in the future for putting events together, diversity, equity, and inclusion events. And we would love to hear, always love to see new people, meet new people, and work with people to help Washington State be as equitable, representative as we can make it. So if I think on one of our slides at the end, I believe we have the contact information for both Jovita and I. And so if you reach out to us, we can get you a link there for our Thursday meeting, which will be held from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. on, I believe it's Teams. Yeah, it's Teams.
Steve, I also put the contact information in the chat.
Oh, thank you so much, Noemi. I appreciate that.
Wonderful.
We are, oh, sorry, wrong. Sorry, done.
Are you sure?
Positive.
Okay.
I was going to talk about the virtual HHN or HHM, but that's something different. So
No, that's okay. And I think we can open up for some updates on that when we get to that section. For best practices this month, there isn't a report out. So I will turn this to our brand new co-chairs for events and conferences. Hopefully, I know we have Diana here, and I'm not sure if Sedona's with us, but I would like to introduce Diana as the co-chair, one of the co-leads for our events and conferences committee. She will be sharing this co-lead title with Sedona, who is also going to be helping us with events and conferences. So I will turn it over to Diana, since I know that I saw you in here earlier.
Yes, I am. And I think Sedona wasn't going to be able to make it, but she sent me some information on her virtual events. So yes, I'm happy to give an update on the Hispanic Heritage Month event that we have planned. So the in-person event is September 17th. It's a Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. The location is Marysville State Park in Tilley Road. I know I sabotaged the name of that park, but it is in Kitchen Shelter 3. Everyone should have received an email around 10 a.m. this morning, and it's a registration. Please register. We encourage everyone to register. There is a cutoff. It is Friday, August the 26th by 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And just reiterating, registration is very important. It aids us in the final head count for food, beverage, etc. For parking, there is a parking fee associated with the event. That information is also in that email registration that you received this morning. For those that have a Discover Pass, it's free. A one-day parking is $11.50. Otherwise, the annual Discover Pass is $35. I'm happy to say that we will have a one-day pass, a limited amount for those who register early. So please get registered as early as possible. And once again, the Discover Pass information, location for this event is also in that email. The agenda, we are working on a robust agenda. Our keynote speaker will be Chief Justice Stephen Gonzalez of the Washington State Supreme Court. We have food, traditional Latin American food and appetizers. We have activities, guided hikes, a short 1 mile and a longer extended hike. Our entertainment is amazing. There's going to be music, dancers. So just wonderful. It's going to be a wonderful event. So once again, please register as early as you can. You should have received that this morning. Then as far as virtual events, we have 4 planned virtual events for Hispanic Heritage Month, so that you will also need to register for. The 4 events is Thursday, September 26th, Thursday, September 29th, Thursday, October 6th, and Thursday, October 13th. Please be checking your LLN newsletter for more information and details regarding our September 17th in-person event at Marysville Park and our virtual events that we have, the 4 that we have scheduled for Hispanic Heritage Month celebration. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Diana, for sharing that report. And just a reminder, the registration is for the in-person event for Saturday, September 17th. The other virtual events may or may not have a registration depending on the format of the event. But if you aren't able to travel out as far as Tumwater, Washington for the in-person event, we do have virtual events for us to enjoy as well. So I will also like to take this opportunity, because I don't think that we've had a chance to make this introduction, but we also have a new lead for membership and outreach, and that is Vanessa Rojas. She is our membership and outreach leader. So if you have any questions about membership, or if you're new today and you'd like to talk about maybe joining one of the committee, we have contact information on the next slide for each committee. Feel free to reach
Monica,
out to, I'm sorry.
there is a question that someone posted about the event. Is this event a public event or just LLN members? How do I know if I'm a member?
Oh, that is a great question.
I will let Noemi.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. This is Noemi Solorzano Thompson, admin of LLN. So You are an LLN member if you are subscribed to government delivery. And if you don't know if you are subscribed, there's two easy ways of knowing. Did you get the email about the Miller-Sylvania registration event? If you did not get that event, first check your junk folder. And after you check that junk folder and you still do not have that, then email us at OFM. At lnnofm.gov. I'll just put it in the chat and I will add you to government delivery. These are the two guidelines. If you are a state worker, you will become an OFM member through this subscription. If you are not a state worker, you will also become a member through the subscription, but you are at large community member. Which means that we are so happy to have you and we love you. The only limitation is that you are unable to vote for elections, and you are also unable to have a leadership or program position because those are limited to state workers since this is a state business group. Again, you should have received, as Diana said, an email around 10 a.m. this morning telling you the registration link for the Miller-Sylvania State Park event. If you did not receive that, check your junk mailbox first. And then once you have confirmed you did not receive this, and this email came from lnn@ofmwat.gov, email us at lnn@ofmwat.gov, and I will add you to government delivery. Yes, at-large community members are very much welcome to the Miller-Sylvania Park event. Everybody's welcome, and this could be your first official LLN member event because, again, all you have to do is get into the Gov Delivery subscription, sign up for the event, and yay, you're a member with us.
And that also includes our allies in attendance as well. Allies are welcome to register for the event. That's how we are going to build this community to be even stronger with our diversity and inclusion. Thank you so much for that help, Noemi. And thank you so much for all of the questions in the chat. And she did mention the email address, and I believe that's going to come on another slide, and we can put, she also did share in the chat as well. Thank you so much. Okay, looks like we have the announcements have just gone through, and that's contact information for each committee. And I will put a plug in here that we are still looking for a committee possibility to have a committee leader for health and wellness. So if you're interested in health and wellness and you'd be interested in becoming one of the leaders or committee member for that group, please feel free to email Vanessa at our LLN email. Okay, what's next? Oh, and for Hispanic Heritage Month, we will be having special backgrounds that we will release in the month of September so that we can utilize them during Hispanic Heritage Month as our Zoom backgrounds for these meetings, but also to share within your other agency spaces where you might have use for a Zoom or Teams background. I'm very excited about these. I've always wanted these for our group for this particular month of celebration. So we will happily provide those to the LLN newsletter in September. And this might be a good opportunity, Steve, for you to talk about some of your virtual events that you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah, we, as Diana mentioned, we have 4 events planned. One, we plan to, let me get my thoughts together here. Sorry. One, we will have an artist speaking to us. Another one, we will be speaking about food. The third, we are hoping to get a representative, a commissioner from CHA, Commission on Hispanic Affairs. And the fourth is, let me go to my OneNote, Monica, let me do it. The fourth one is, the fourth one will be Bailadores de Bronce, dance troupe that will be doing, I believe they're going to be doing showing video presentations of their dancing, and I think giving a presentation as well on their dance troupe.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for those updates. And yes, you're right, Diana did touch on that in her update as well, but I had the little note to make sure I gave it back to you. So I honored that little note. Okay, that's it for our regular content for this meeting. We're happy to address any questions that people might have either about what we have coming up or the Hispanic Heritage Month events. That's pretty much it for today. Noemi, do you mind sharing the next slide so we can go over our next meeting? Okay, our next general meeting is September 13th at 3 p.m. This might be a shorter meeting because we also want to help celebrate our BRG counterparts that are having their Happen event. And I forget the entire acronym for Happen. So if one of my board member counterparts has access to that to share in the chat, we want to make sure that we're supporting all of our other BRGs and providing space for them as well. That's it for our meeting today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording in a moment. Thank you everyone for your attendance, and I hope that you enjoyed our presentation on lean. Please make sure you share gratitude in the chat for Robin for giving us her time and expertise. And thank you again for coming. We're very happy to have you. And if this was your first time, welcome. We hope to see you more often. Have a wonderful week and have a great month.
Thank you, everybody.
Everyone.
A wonderful evening, everyone.